get straight to the breaking news out of Hollywood this morning.
If my brother were here right now and he saw all the love that you were bringing here, if he could see for himself.
We don't know what they'll do here, or even if they'll just say, you know, it may be tasteless to proceed at all because...
The accident scene tells the story. There it is. Walker was a passenger in a Porsche that collided with a pole and...
Walker died Saturday when the Porsche he was riding in crashed and burst into flames. Coroner Ed Winters said Walker...
You know the drill by now. Starting off in 2001 as a modest undercover cop film that was kinda just great value Point Break, The Fast and the Furious had, through sheer force of will and determination, all by themselves and without anyone's permission, turned into a beloved action franchise full of high-octane scenes, vehicle stunts, and big men doing big things. Gone were the good old early 2000s days of flip phones, hip-hop, blinged-out JDM cars, bucket hats, and giant skateboarding shoes. The series was now all about explosions, terrorism, stunts, giant action set pieces, soap opera-esque interpersonal drama, and Dwayne the fucking Rock, goddammit, piss-ass, fucking stone cold Dwayne the Rock ass goddamn Johnson.
It's about dick, it's about penis.
Ever since Fast 5 said fuck it and just had the gang whipping a big ass safe through Brazil and blowing shit up, the series had been on an unstoppable trajectory towards shattering the very fabric of reality. Mark my words, the last movie will probably look like this if they know what the hell they're doing. When we last left off with the franchise, Fast and Furious 6 saw the crew descend into the depths of hell itself to save Dom's epic girlfriend Letty from the clutches of Owen Shaw, a lovable goofball who wanted to do something bad or some shit, I don't remember. There was a computer thing, I don't know. I made that video like 5 or 6 months ago, give me a break. It was bigger, crazier, there was no gross ass toilet scene, and Ludacris was in it. I said Ludacris was in it. What's going on here? Where's the clip? Oh. I'm being sued by Red Letter Media to the tune of $87,439 for the repeated use of a 3-second clip from Half in the Bag. This clip,
Ludacris is in it?
that I always use whenever I bring up Ludacris.
Ludacris is in it?
P.S. If you used it more times, add $13 onto the previous total. Rich Evans. That was nice of him. You can tell it's really from them because it's written in crayon. Alright, well that's more money than I'll ever make in my lifetime, so be sure to like and subscribe to help with my court bills. Drop a comment and let me know which Fast movie you think ruined the franchise. It was the first one. Anyway, the point is, in the last installment, Letty came back, Giselle died, Han left to go to Tokyo to die in 2006 Tokyo Drift, but it was actually Jason Statham, brother of Owen Shaw, who kills Han in like 2014 now, which doesn't really make any sense at all when you consider the fact that the Pepsi logo on this can of Pepsi Twist in Tokyo Drift at 58 minutes and 48 seconds is clearly the 2003 to 2006 logo and not the 2008 to 2014 Pepsi logo. Are we to believe that these movies exist in a world where Pepsi maintained the 2003 to 2006 logo for over a decade? I can only suspend my disbelief so much. Do better, Hollywood. Also, I somehow never noticed this before, Tokyo Drift apparently takes place around Christmas time. Look, Japan's got all their Christmas lights up, that KFC employee is wearing a Santa hat, that clock says Sunday, December 11th. This is a Christmas movie, guys. Sixth and the City set the stage for a follow-up which could very well be the darkest installment in the franchise. Letty's back, but she's got amnesia and don't know nobody. Han is dead and never coming back. Giselle is dead and never coming back. These guys are... I don't know where these guys are, nobody will tell me. And even behind the scenes, Justin Lin, the man arguably most responsible for all of this, left the franchise to do... well, nothing really. Take a nap, I suppose. And can you blame him? He'd been going non-stop in these films since 2006, 4 movies in a row, and Universal wanted Furious 7 to come out the very next year, 2014. They wanted a film full of action that would top 5 and 6, and they wanted it extremely fast. It would have required him to begin pre-production on 7, while he was doing post-production on 6. I know a joke about Universal having dollar signs in their eyes a lot, but goddamn, do you really need it that quickly? These things take time, I would assume. So they replaced him with James Wan, a horror director slash tiny small guy who, for whatever reason, believed he could do what Lin could not. Deliver on the biggest installment yet on the smallest amount of time yet. You may know Wan from the Saw, Insidious, and Conjuring franchises. I've never seen those movies though, they look scary. Luckily, writer Chris Morgan, now 7 years old, was still attached as the writer. But arguably worse than losing Justin Lin to the beck and call of his living room couch was Paul Walker dying in a car crash just 2.5 months into production on November 30th, 2014. At 3:30 p.m. that day, Paul Walker got into a red 2005 Porsche Carrera GT driven by his buddy Roger Rodas and proceeded to do 93 in a 45 and slammed into a concrete post, and the car, for all intents and purposes, exploded. I remember when this happened, there were plenty of people quick to point out the irony of the whole thing. You know, because he made all those movies where he drove cars, and then he died in a car. It's ironic.
That one hit me, right? Because you remember the headline when Paul Walker died? It said, Paul Walker dies in fiery car crash. I had the same reaction as every other American. I said, yeah, that is ironic. That is a irony. Then Fast and Furious 6 came out, and I cried, and then
It'd be like if Bryan Cranston overdosed on meth. It'd be like if Hayden Christensen got his arms and legs cut off and fell into a volcano. It'd be like if Macaulay Culkin died during a home invasion. His death echoed that of fellow famous Paul, the real Paul McCartney, who we all know died in a car crash in 1966. Obviously, the death of such a major actor in the series midway through filming delayed production and very nearly got the thing cancelled before it was decided that they would simply use technology to defy God and resurrect the dead with the help of Weta Digital, who would CGI Paul's face onto a series of lookalike actors, including his brothers Cody and Caleb. The end result is, I have literally no idea which shots are actually him. This also echoes how Paul McCartney was replaced by a lookalike named William Shears Campbell. Following his death, among the jokes, there was also a lot of genuine heartbreak and sadness throughout the fandom and car enthusiast culture in general. These movies, despite everything, had a profound impact on the culture, and people had and still have a huge affinity for Paul Walker. The song See You Again by Charlie Puth and Wiz Khalifa, which was written specifically for the ending of Furious 7 as a tribute to Walker, was the #1 song in the US for a damn long time, and I still hear it on the radio. Well, I don't listen to the radio, but I hear it over the loudspeaker at the store sometimes, and I fall to my knees screaming, Paul Walker, why? Until I get thrown out of Walmart like Fresh Prince Jazz. Although the cynical part of me has to wonder if these people are really as ride or die for Paul Walker as they claim. Yeah, sure, you like the Fast and the Furious, but have you seen Tammy and the T-Rex? Or Meet the Deedles? You a big 8 Below head? What about Timeline? Yeah, you've got yourself a stupid-ass bumper sticker with a quote he never actually said, and that fact alone actually makes it kind of fucked that people are celebrating his death due to speed with this historical revisionism that it's like admirable or something that 2 people died being irresponsible speeding on public roads. But have you seen Into the Blue? Get fucked. Talk to me when you know that he's in the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones Wrong Thing Right Then music video. All this is to say, Furious 7 had a lot riding on it. Due to Walker's death, the entry went from being just the next Fast and Furious film to potentially the final Fast and Furious film, a send-off to Brian/Paul, a technical spectacle effects nightmare. It had to be bigger and crazier than ever, while also being more emotionally than ever too. They had to take a movie that was supposed to be about avenging Han's death in Tokyo Drift and make it not only still about that, but also rework it to explain why Brian is never going to show up ever again. All the while having fucking race cars and big men and punching and giant explosions. Let's get into it. Furious 7 sees La Familia at their lowest. Han and Giselle dead, Brian has a wife and child, Letty still has amnesia. Wait, I said all this already. But all that changes when Deckard Shaw, older brother of Owen Shaw from the last movie, has decided that as revenge for putting his brother in the hospital, he is going to murder everyone, including this hospital full of people taking care of his brother. fuck them too for some reason. Back in Dom and Letty's Automobile Bonanza Volume 1, in an effort to jog her memory back, Dom takes her to Race Wars 2014. Bigger and better than ever. We got dirt bikes, jumping Monster Energy buses, and bikini babes. We even got Hector. Hector? Wait, what? He's... No, it's not. It's not possible. Hector's back. I never thought I'd see the day he returned. Guys, did we just win? I have so many questions. Did he ever learn how to pronounce his last name? How did the first Race Wars go for him? I mean, after all, he was running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines, and on top of that, he went into Harry's and bought 3 T66 turbos with NOS and a Motec exhaust system. I just feel so triumphant. Hector's back. Noel Guglielmi even got an opening credit. He's gonna have a big, huge role in this film. I can feel it, and he's gone. That's it. Fuck you. That's it? I waited 14 years just for that? I'm gonna get rid of all my Hector stuff! All of it! All of it! Okay, so let's lay out everyone's arc, I guess. Letty, get her memory back. Roman wants to be taken seriously as a leader. Shepard wants to kill Gordon Freeman. Brian is having a tough time adjusting to the suburban life and misses the bullets. Dom wants to build the perfect sandcastle. Mia basically isn't in this movie. The Rock wants to kill Jason Statham. Jason Statham wants to kill everybody. Han is dead, and Ludacris is also here. So Jason Statham sends a bomb to the Toretto's house from Tokyo. I bet that wasn't easy. Shipping a bomb from Tokyo to LA. You know, shipping things overseas from Japan is usually pretty expensive and difficult. But thanks to today's sponsor, it's never been easier to buy kawaii anime merch, obscure deep-cut underground jazz records, and send bombs across the world from the comfort of your kate. Apparently this movie takes place in a universe where the Unabomber never existed and nobody ever thought to check the contents of packages for bombs. So his imported Japanese Kit Kats blow the entire shit up, much to the probably joy of the real-life homeowners, and the gang realizes that they're being hunted down one by one. This leads Dom to go to Tokyo and officially explains his cameo in Tokyo Drift. I always wondered if he's still been beating everyone around Asia too. They actually cut that line out of the archival footage they reused from Tokyo Drift. I guess Dom running all over Asia, street racing random people doesn't quite work anymore when he's here investigating Han's murder. But it's not just reused Tokyo Drift footage, they actually brought Lucas Black back and filmed new scenes with him. If you thought they were stretching it, playing a high schooler when they were 24, worry not, because at 32-ish he's passing a 17 pretty good. They reveal that Dom won the race, meaning Sean spent very little time being the Drift King before Dom dethroned him. It's kind of sad.
You just have to say that.
Sean gives Dom a few items he apparently found near the crash site. A photo of Giselle and the cross necklace, which makes the crash yet more convoluted. When did Sean get these? Did you know Han's full name is Han Solo? Like Han Solo. In my opinion, his name being Han Solo adds further credibility to the idea that he's the same Han from Better Luck Tomorrow, and this is the new fake name he made for himself after he presumably fled the country at the end of the film. Anyway, back at the funeral, Jason Statham appears, so Dom chases him to an underground road where they just fucking slam into each other like a couple of assholes. Real elite level assassin shit here, huh, Jason Statham? Oi, I think I'm gonna slam me horseless carriage into that other bloke there, give him a real crack on the old noggin. Oi, I'm British and I'm fucking stupid. But suddenly Dom is rescued by Kurt Russell and the Kurt Russell Army, who have an offer they can't refuse. He says, now son, if you want to find Jason Statham quicker than a rattlesnake on a tumbleweed, you gotta help me find a little old hackadoo who get called the God's Eye. Now with this little gizmo, you can tap into every camera and microphone in the entire world. Cell phones, security cameras, all of them. If you get this for us, the United States government, we'll let you use it to find Jason Statham and kill his stupid ass. And then Dom is like, and Kurt Russell says, but would you do it for some corona? And Dom says, Amen. So the God's Eye device, this super advanced surveillance technology. I guess this can be our first little piece of analysis study here. Let's rewind the clock back to June of 2013. Inbay Park, female golf player from South Korea, wins her second US title. Lorde releases her first and only song, Royals, and Edward Snowden exposed the scope of the US government surveillance state under the NSA and CIA. The information leaked by Snowden revealed that privacy effectively doesn't exist in the digital age. The government could read your text messages, your emails, listen to your phone calls, tap into your phone cameras and webcams, your internet search history.
I created the NSA, that's right. I know all about the websites you go to. I know what you've searched at motherless.com. You're a kinky boy.
And this was all in 2013. Think about how much further technology has come. The government has 9 terabytes of just the audio of you and every other person in the world having loud-ass shits on the toilet. It's vital for national security. I remember at the time this was a really big deal. I think everyone knew to some extent that the government could spy on you, but they weren't aware of how extensive they were actually able to. And this being such a huge story naturally bled into pop culture. There was 2014's Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which dealt with a surveillance state plotline. Then there was Furious 7. These were the only 2 I could think of, I'm sorry. I think the movie may inadvertently be saying something about the ethical dilemmas that come with our ever-increasingly digital techno-chungus lives, through both CGI Paul Walker and the God's Eye. Technology technically being used for good also has a disproportionately greater potential to be disgusting and evil. Back in 2015, it was rare and kinda novel that we could use CGI to help finish performances when actors died during the shoot. But as that technology developed, studios got more greedy and wanted to use it to include actors who had been dead for years before the movie even began shooting, puppeting their CGI corpses around as they beg for your quarters. Now, if you squint your eyes hard enough, you can almost draw a parallel between resurrecting dead actors and the loss of privacy. In theory, it would be great if we could prevent terrorism before it happened, but in practice, it falls apart because usually it's the government themselves behind those plots anyway. And in theory, it would be great if these highly marketable faces never had to die or age and couldn't prevent studios from cashing in on their likenesses from beyond the grave. But both the concepts of immortality and omnipresence are reserved for the gods for a reason. Most people didn't really give a shit about most of this stuff anyway. Nothing changed in the wake of Snowden's whistleblowing, and people moved on to other 2013 stuff like Flappy Bird, Froyo, or Vine. These days, the NSA kinda just exists to put you on timeout when you bang too hard on Twitter. The God's Eye was designed by this new character, a woman programmer named Ramsey, who they rescue during a sick-as-hell action sequence where they skydive cars into a paramilitary convoy, and Brian fights Tony Jaa, and I'll come back to the scene later. Ramsey designed the God's Eye as a challenge to herself, basically just like, lol, what if I made this horrifying, scary thing? Which echoes much of what AI devs are doing these days. Yeah, it technically is amazing that we can generate audio and video of people doing and saying things. That's also really scary. Stop making that. AI fucking sucks, and I think everyone should find it deeply troubling that the richest and most powerful companies and people in the world are pushing so hard for the general population to literally stop thinking for themselves. Thinking and being creative is too hard. Let our AI bot do it for you. Fuck you! Sorry, I'm getting off topic and heated. The point of all this analysis about technology, both inside and outside of the film, is this. Technology is a blessing and a curse. On the one hand, technology brought us the Casio DG20 and allowed Paul Walker to be in this movie despite being dead. But on the other hand, it also holds insane potential to destroy everything that makes us human. No privacy, computer programs doing all our thinking and creativity, and even dead, you still have to be in Star Wars. Okay, so anyway, now we can move on to the real important stuff, the action scenes. This movie is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A and N-A-A-S, bananas. I know I say this every time, but this is the movie I think people are really talking about when they say that these films got out of their minds. Before this, you get like 1 or 2 absurd things per film, but this movie is non-stop relentless with it. Each action scene is potentially the best in the entire series, while also being wilder than the one that came before it, and frankly, I don't know any other movie, like, period, that gets as crazy on such a large scale as this one does. First, we got The Rock versus Statham. Classic fight scene.
Classics.
Table kick into several panes of glass shattering around them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Classic. Then Statham can't smell what The Rock is cooking. That's right, it's a rock bottom. through a fucking glass table, you bitch! This shot is so sick. The camera spin, it's cinema. James Wan is low-key putting Justin Lin to shame here. But Statham comes back with a light fixture to the dome and the chair tip combo. Classic maneuver. The Rock finds the secret desk gun and opens fire as Elena comes in for backup, but Statham says, "Think fast, chuckle nuts," and tosses a bomb at them, so he goes flying out the window with Elena and lands on a car, crippling him, sort of. It's like breaks his arm, I think. You know, people always say this shit about how Dwayne Johnson has this no losing a fight clause in his film contracts, but it seems like he lost the hell out of this fight. That's all I'm saying. He also lost to Dom in Fast 5. And he also lost Warner Brothers roughly $100 million with Black Adam. But that's a story for another day. This scene is like a 7 or 8 out of 10. Okay, next action scene, there's that car chase. Yeah, like 4 out of 10. I mean, it's funny when they smash into each other. Next action scene. The car skydiving / Ramsey rescue / convoy chase / Brian versus Tony Jaa / bus cliff jump drift / Dom drives off a cliff scene. You see, to rescue Ramsey, they need to get her off this highly protected military convoy where she's being held by terrorists or something. But to do that, they can't just drive in because of... Well, you see... the road. Shut up, fuck you. So they say, where's the last place they'd expect us to come from? The sky, dummy. It's so genius because we'd be idiots to actually do that. So they load up into the back of an airplane and skydive the goddamn cars out of the back of a big ass plane. Then they hit the fucking ground. Now, something I really respect about these films is the fact that, yes, obviously there is a ton of CGI in the scene, but they did really drop cars out of the back of a plane. Then they had skydivers with cameras strapped to their heads, flying next to the cars to get some of the shots. Crazy as hell. Like, who else is doing that shit? I don't know who else would need to, but now an underrated aspect of this scene, I think, is Brian driving a 2012 Subaru Impreza WRX hatchback. No shade to the 2012 Impreza WRX hatchback, but it's really funny to see like a fairly normal looking car going up against these heavily armored vehicles and taking turret gunfire. This car costs like $20K. Brian's in a great car for surviving the harsh winters of South Dakota and vaping while you get Taco Bell for lunch before returning to your job as a tile floor installationist. Brian does get to do basically all the coolest parts of this scene. You know, he fights Tony Jaa and all his special ops goons while wearing a hoodie. He does another classic hood surf like in the first film again. After Fast 6 had that joke fight with Joe Taslim, an extremely talented martial artist who was just there to beat up Han and Roman, it's really nice to actually see some cool hand-to-hand combat with Tony Jaa. I mean, it's not amazing, it's not on the level of The Raid or The Protector or Ong Bak or literally anything you could see in even the shittiest Thai, Indonesian, or Hong Kong movies, but they're at least like actually using him for his talents. I will say though, they're really stretching the whole Brian is an FBI agent so he can do awesome action shit explanation, but you know, they also entered the scene by skydiving cars, so what the hell do I care about realism anymore? But speaking of shit getting unrealistic, when the bus goes sideways and almost falls off the cliff, then he has to do the Uncharted 2 thing to get off and runs on top of the bus as it's falling off the cliff right as Letty hits a gnarly drift to catch him. It's amore. Then Brian and Letty have their second and last dialogue exchange in the entire series.
You good?
Thank you.
Then Dom and Ramsey are surrounded with their backs to the cliff, and Dom's like, "Cliff? I'm thinking cliff."
He's fucking dead.
This action scene gets like a 8 or 9 out of 10. It's great. It's fantastic. Next action scene. Ramsey reveals that the God's Eye device is in Abu Dhabi because the government gave Universal money to film there. It was on a flash drive that she entrusted to her friend who sold it for some reason to a Jordanian prince who put it in a supercar on top of a skyscraper. For some reason. And this Jordanian prince really is rich. I mean, you ever been to a party where they got bitches from The Simpsons? So Dom is lifting the Lycan Hypersport up with his bare hands. This car weighs 3,042 pounds, by the way. The deadlift world record is only like 1,100 pounds. Meanwhile, Letty fights Ronda Rousey and her Ronda Raiders. I always like when a movie lets the women have fight scenes that are just as gnarly and brutal as the fellas. It's literally 2015. It's the future. I'm not saying this is some sort of sex pervert. Good action stars get beat up and do crazy shit, and I've always admired these movies for not sidelining the women and actually giving them cool action scenes too. For a franchise that's been so maligned for objectifying women, because they do, including like 4 seconds ago and also like 3 minutes prior when Ramsey's in a swimsuit for basically no reason. It's kind of hilarious how much better they are at not treating them as if all they can do is sit back and be pretty while the giant buff men spout cheesy one-liners. Say what you want about these films, but this is what being progressive actually looks like. Anyway, back to Dom and Brian. They say, "Ow, this car's too heavy." And Dom decides they'll just have to move the car somewhere else and find a USB drive with God's Eye on it. But uh-oh, Jason Statham is here too, and he's like, brum, 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 brum. So Dom breaks his legs with the car, and he's like, building, and jumps the car into the next building. But Jason Statham is like, "Oi, you forgot your grenade, dipshit." Which I think the implication here is that the grenade gives them a boost, perhaps? Whatever the case, when they land in Tower 2, their brakes don't work, which means they have to jump to Tower 3. Thankfully, nothing was in Tower 2, but Tower 3 holds what I personally believe to be maybe the funniest possible thing there could be to have a car smash into. The Terracotta Army of King Shang, first Emperor of China. Priceless artifacts of immeasurable historical value. Honk, honk. It's a fucking car.
Nice throw!
I'm rating this action scene 9 out of 10. Phenomenal. Next action scene. So they get their God's Eye device and use it to find Jason Statham, and they figure out that he's hiding at Rust from Modern Warfare 2. So Kurt Russell says, "Dom, Brian, and all my soldier friends, let's go kill this dandelion quicker than a glass of lemonade on a lily pad. Yeehaw!" They roll up on Statham in a warehouse eating dinner, doing this like badass evil villain act, and look, everyone had this thought when they saw this scene. Just shoot him. Just walk in, target spotted, and blow his head off. Fuck your sassy evil villain bit. Of course they don't, which leads to this guy dying. And you know what? That's what you get for doubting Roman earlier in the film.
Know your fucking place, trash.
But Jason Statham has joined forces with the terrorists from the beginning of the movie, the guys from the convoy. So Kurt Russell activates his sunglasses mode and starts popping tags like he's only got $20 in his pocket. This scene is actually so badass, it's unreal. Anyway, Jason Statham and this guy get the God's Eye back. I don't know why they brought it with them. So Dom and Brian decide, fuck it, let's go home. I don't even give a shit anymore. This scene is like a 6.5 out of 10. Final action scene. Where do I even begin with this? This final act is the stuff of legends. So many of the most ridiculous moments from the entire franchise thus far are in these last 20-ish minutes. It's all so incredible. Okay, so they need to counter-hack the God's Eye device to stop this guy, Dikembe, the terrorist who kidnapped Ramsey earlier, who have the God's Eye. To do this, they're going to drive around LA with Ramsey in the backseat hacking, while Dom and Jason Statham have an epic street fight on the roof of a parking garage. Their final battle echoes that of their first, with them driving their cars towards each other in a game of chicken, before Dom pops a goddamn wheelie and crushes that hoe. The end.
He's fucking dead.
No, actually, they get out and start having a sword fight with wrenches. Although technically, it's not exactly a sword fight, it's Filipino martial arts, aka Arnis or Cali or Eskrima. But you didn't know that. Which is why I make the video, not you. And they play it so dramatically. Listen to the opera come in. Yeah, they know the scene is legendary. Then, back on the streets, you got Roman and Ludacris going into a tandem drift with Brian so they can throw Ramsey through the windows and avoid getting hit by a missile sent by this drone the terrorists have. In-fucking-sane. The drone takes out the cell tower they were using to do the hack, so Brian's like, I'll go to another one and do some shit or fucking... And when he gets there, Tony Jaa is in the building, and they have another crazy-ass fight scene. They bring in backup, who smash through the glass, and Brian's pinned down, but he sees a cart and does some Max Payne, John Woo type shit. Okay, well, not quite. He'd have to jump sideways while akimbo wielding 2 weapons, and then land on the cart for it to be John Woo, but it's still pretty cool. Meanwhile, Dwayne Johnson sees the carnage going on outside his hospital window, and he's like, I gotta get in the mix. So he looks at his broken arm cast and flexes it off. It's so beautiful. So back on the streets, Letty and Ramsey are driving along and the drone is chasing them into a tunnel. A missile hits them and they're like, fuck! But right as they're coming out of the tunnel, honk, honk, The Rock is back with a fucking ambulance, you son of a bitch, and takes the drone out from the top rope. Then he walks up to it and double taps that drone. Ice cold, but it ain't over yet. He rips the minigun off the drone and walks off with it. With the drone taken care of, Ramsey's able to finish the hack, and now Dikembe is like, well, shit. Might as well kill Dom, I guess. So they fire a missile at the parking garage while he's still fighting Jason Statham, and it starts cracking the place up. Dom looks at Jason Statham and says, the thing about street fights, the street always wins. And stomps and the whole shit starts to collapse. But it's not over yet. The chopper is still in the sky, so Dom steals his backpack full of grenades that Jason Statham brought, I guess to use in the street fight, I don't know. So he gets in his car, and the chopper is like, no, you can't do that! And starts shooting more missiles into the garage, so Dom is driving and drifting through the garage as the entire thing explodes around him until he sees a ramp made of rubble and says, ramp. And hits the NOS to ram the chopper in the goddamn sky. And he misses. He's dead.
He's fucking dead.
He failed. Everyone is going to die. Just kidding, fucko! He threw the backpack full of grenades onto somewhere on the chopper. And The Rock sees it and he pulls out his golden Desert Eagle. And kaboom! Get fucked. All in all, I give the scene a 10 out of 10 for the action. I didn't mention everything that happens, but I mean, it's so outrageous, it's so non-stop and ridiculous. Like, if you want to show someone the unchecked mania of these movies, Furious 7 is the one to choose. Like, it has it all. But now it's time to bring the mood back down. We need to talk about the elephant in the room. How did they handle the fact that Paul Walker was dead? What happened to Brian? He's the original lead actor in the series. He's been in it more than Dom had, so what were they going to do? Well, according to what we know, the script was largely the same before he died, but with the crew deciding to go off and be outlaws again, and obviously Brian and Mia would continue to be around. With their kids, I guess. And as far as official sources go, that's all we have for sure. There is this shitty-ass blurry video of a supposed original script on Reddit that's barely readable, where all the villains from past movies form a Legion of Doom against the family, but we don't know that that's real, and I for one refuse to spread unsubstantiated rumors about the Fast and Furious franchise. Unlike some people. Oh yeah, so basically what they decide to do is retire the character of Brian O'Connor. Brian is going to go off with Mia and raise his son and their upcoming daughter. The movie ends with a touching sequence of Dom and Brian pulling up at a crossroads. Brian in an all-white 95 Supra as See You Again plays, while Brian drives off into the sunset, complete with Dom voiceover and a montage of scenes from the past movies. This would be utterly bizarre if you didn't know Paul Walker died. Like, the movie doesn't really set this up as well as it probably would have had he not died in real life. The movie has this whole thing with Brian going on where he misses the bullets. He just can't get used to driving a minivan and raising a family when he wants to be shooting people and doing wacky action bullshit. And over the course of the film, I guess the arc being presented is that the action is so buck wild in this installment that he's gotten his fill forever. Furious 7 came out on April 3rd, 2015, about a year and a half after Paul Walker's death, and potentially due in part to his death. The film would go on to gross $1.51 billion, and was at one point the fourth highest grossing film of all time. Not of the series, not of that year, fourth highest grossing film ever, period. Today it rests at 12th place, but that's pretty damn high for one of these. It was also received extremely well both by fans and critics. becoming the most positively rated of the franchise to date. But this left the studio in probably one of the hardest places it had ever been in. 7 was and still is the greatest achievement of the franchise, both critically and financially. People were pumped on this, but it also ended pretty well for it to just be the end. Writer Chris Morgan would later go on to say in an April 12th, 2017 interview with Collider, in the end of the movie, we were kind of just leaning into kind of a different sort of adventure. But then with what happened to Paul once that film came out and it did well and it was great, it could have been the end of the franchise. We actually were thinking there for a minute, maybe we just leave this, go out on a good note and leave it alone. And we all kind of made an agreement to say that we wouldn't revisit this unless we had a story that did something dramatically different that was worthy of being done. But they had been in a similar situation before, like when Vin Diesel didn't come back for Too Fast or when nobody came back for Tokyo Drift. But that was the early days, when the franchise was young and could still just do whatever it wanted. Now it was this big ensemble cast with connected stories and mythology. I guess you could say nobody was really sure about the fate of the Furious.
Friends with fucking Ghoul City.